Hello everybody, I'm Will Turbitt for Demand the Truth. I'm sitting here with Danny Panzella, the chair of the Libertarian Party here in Staten Island, New York. Danny, would you introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
Absolutely. My name is Danny, and I'm a libertarian activist in New York City. And I'm active on a lot of different issues, 9/11, reform of NYPD policy, and the Fed is another big issue for me, the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm very active in New York City.
All right. Were you always like this, or how did you kind of awaken to these issues?
No, I was not very politically aware prior to the 2008 financial crisis. Really what kind of woke things up for me was when George Bush got on television and said, "We need to suspend capitalism to save it." That phrase just like set something off in me. I said, that's not right. And so that's when I started to kind of pay attention to what was happening with the financial crisis, which led me to the Federal Reserve, and then down the rabbit hole, with all the other different issues. So that I would have to say that the crisis and then the election of Obama, I was like a mainstream neocon right-winger at that time. So the election of Obama, who the media was saying, or the right-wing media was saying, he's a communist, he's a socialist, I was like, whoa, what's going on? Now obviously I realize that's all part of the false left-right paradigm, but it was enough to get me involved in research, which has led me here.
Okay. So what are your goals and the goals of the Libertarian Party?
Well, my vision for the Libertarian Party is to get away from politics. I want to spread the ideas of liberty and the principles of liberty to people who are interested in politics, of course, and use politics as a platform for that. But I want to turn the Libertarian Party, at least my little portion of it on Staten Island, into becoming more of a community organization. So I want to get involved in doing projects that help the community, especially in the coming economic hardship that I believe is about to come, with hyperinflation or inflation, whatever we start to see as the economy continues to slide downward. One of the projects that I want to work on is building community gardens. On Staten Island, we have a lot of downzoned land that builders can no longer build on. So a lot of builders are sitting on these small lots that they can't build, but yet the health department requires them to maintain, that to mow the grass and keep litter off the property. So my idea is to ask these builders to donate use of the land. We'll keep it clean, we'll build community gardens, and then donate the produce to food pantries, who will then distribute that to needy people in the community. So that's the vision I have for the Libertarian Party, to do projects like that benefit the community, and then that gives us a platform to develop relationships and then say, look, this is why we're doing this. This is why we don't go to the state for money and ask for money to then distribute to people. And we can explain to them about the free market and about liberty. So that's really what my vision is.
All right, so the Democrats and the Republicans, it seems to me like there's banking interest and corporate interest that seem to have hands in both sides. Is that true? How large is their sphere of interest, the corporations and the banks behind both of the major political parties?
I think it's total. I would probably argue that the corporations started at both the parties. I'm sure that could be verified with some kind of research if somebody had interest to go back and research the beginnings of the parties. But we know that our founders were not really fond of parties. But I would say that the parties are really just constructs of the corporations themselves at some point, or the corporate elite. Not so much the corporations, but the corporate elite, because the corporation is just a tool like anything else.
All right, and so how does the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, how do they differ from the Libertarian Party? How does the ideology differ? What does the Libertarian Party have to offer that the two major parties do not?
Well, I think that the Libertarian Party, I like to say when I presented this to people that it's the kind of the best of both parties. You get rid of the politics, you get rid of the nonsense, the divide and conquer issues, and you just break it down to what the crux of the common law, which is what our system is based on, our law system is based on, was basically if there's no victim, there's no crime. As long as you're not hurting anyone else or violating someone else's rights, you have the right to the pursuit of happiness, whatever that means for you. And that really is the core of libertarian philosophy, and that's really what the Libertarian Party is about.
Okay, so let's skip into something else. Let's talk about the police state here in New York City. What's going on with that?
Well, the police state is, New York City seems to be like a beta testing ground for any kind of tyranny that the Homeland Security, FBI, Pentagon, kind of apparatus that they want, when they want to put something on the American people, they seem to want to test it here first. So right now, the NYPD is testing technology to, first of all, they're testing drones. And from the comments of Ray Kelly, I would say that these are armed drones. These are not just surveillance drones. Ray Kelly made a comment recently on 60 Minutes that he has the capability to blow planes out of the sky if he needs to. So that would suggest to me, unless they have surface-to-air missiles somewhere in New York City, I would say that these are probably armed drones that they're testing right now. They're also testing facial recognition and iris scanning software that goes basically, it's on an iPhone, and the police are going to be given these, and when they stop and frisk somebody in the streets, they can take a retinal scan and a facial recognition scan, and then they'll scan your license in, and they'll have all your information, which then they send into their main database. That database, for your viewers who may not know this, the Downtown Security Initiative is the main command center. Basically, it's a fusion center. So OperationDiffuse.com is a great website if you want to check that out. It tells you all about fusion centers, what they do. But basically, it's a place where they can take all different databases. So the driver's license database, surveillance, audio, video that they collect from all the security cameras all over the city, FBI database, NYPD, whatever it is, and they fuse the databases together, and then they share the information across all the agencies. So between the federal government and the NYPD. FBI, NSA, whatever it is. So the idea was post 9/11, the story they told us was that the agencies didn't communicate with each other, and that's why there were so many failures, because nobody was sharing information. So fusion centers were the answer. We'll put all the information into one master database, and then we all have access to it so that we won't have these slips, and terrorists won't slip through the cracks. So Bloomberg and Ray Kelly, the police commissioner, have been pushing not only to keep a database of citizens who they stop and frisk and are guilty of something, either they arrest them or give them a summons, maybe they have a weapon or a little bit of an illicit substance. Bloomberg and Kelly want to keep a list of innocent people as well. So really what they're looking to do is push for this biometric database of all New York citizens at some point. And Governor Cuomo is also pushing a DNA database to keep DNA of every New York City citizen.
So some people might say, well, I'm just a law-abiding citizen. Like, what does it matter if I'm not doing anything wrong? What does it matter that these people are compiling data on me?
Right. Well, it's a fair question. But what happens when you become a political enemy of someone? I mean, we know time and time through history that these type of police state authoritarian regimes, they don't stay perfect and fair and just, that they become political weapons that are used against certain populations. Right now, Homeland Security has kind of started a campaign to demonize the Tea Party and libertarians and right-wing domestic extremists, as they're calling them. So, I got pulled over a couple weeks ago, and it's funny because I have two bumper stickers on the back of my car. One of them says, Bush was a failure, and the other one asks, are you disappointed in Obama? So I saw the police officers laughing at the stickers in my rearview mirror, and then they pulled me over. So when he walks over, he had no reason that he pulled me over. So I believe he probably pulled me over because of the stickers. And he made something up that I had my cell phone in my hand when my cell phone was I was using it as a GPS. It was in my windshield. So but this is something that they're sending out these memos to law enforcement that people with Gadsden don't tread on me stickers or end the Fed stickers. This is stuff that's specifically mentioned in the report are potential extremists, so they want you to pull them over, check their IDs, make sure there's no warrants, and just kind of get them in the system. And so once they can track and trace everybody, then people that belong to certain groups, if you belong to a certain political group that maybe in the future, Tea Party is fairly innocuous right now, but maybe in 10 years, we'll have 3 terrorist attacks in the next 10 years that are blamed on Tea Partiers, and now being a Tea Partier becomes a crime.
So obviously everything didn't just get here overnight with the NDA, the police state, the Patriot Act. Tell me what happened. Give us an overview of what happened over the last few decades. How did we get this far? How did we get this way in America?
Well, I think there's always going to be a fringe that rebels. So the establishment knows that. They kind of take that into an account. They're more concerned with the majority, right? So they have to do things incrementally so the majority accepts it. So it's a slow, and I think it's a multifaceted approach through propaganda with the media. That's why consolidating media was so important for so many years, and this is what they've been working on, I think, for the last 30 years or so. Consolidating all the media down. Pretty much all mainstream media is owned by 5 corporations. So now it's a lot easier to control when you've only got 5 corporations, and the leadership in these corporations all come from the super class, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. I don't really think there's a conspiracy of 13 people. I think it's more a culture. It's a class of people that want to maintain their wealth and power, and this is kind of the cultural wisdom that has been passed down through the years to that superclass. So I think that they use propaganda to get us to accept things. So for instance, in New York, it's very popular to do checkpoints, DWI checkpoints, right? So this is like since the 70s or so they've been doing this. And okay, that's a fair thing to do. You want to check, make sure nobody's driving drunk. But it's a Fourth Amendment violation. It's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. But people accept it because, all right, it sounds reasonable. You want to at least you're not stopping certain people, you're stopping everybody.
Saving lives,
potentially. Right. So that gets us to accept it. Well, now, what are they doing? Now they're stopping and frisking people on the streets. So they've got to incrementally get us psychologically into it. Then they justify the stop and frisk. Well, we only do it in high crime areas. Oh, well, then I guess it's okay that you're violating the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. But if you violate it for one person, even in a high crime area, you're violating it for everybody and setting that precedent that this is okay to do. And it gets to the point where you don't even need to have court cases about it anymore because everybody just says, well, it is what it is. It's a good thing. They only do it to high crime. But we know that's a fallacy because if you look at the numbers, 94% of the people the NYPD stops are innocent. They don't catch them with weapons, drugs, nothing. They have to let them go. 94%. So that says to me either the NYPD is horribly trained, they have terrible instincts, and we need to think about hiring different police officers, or they're not being trained to stop people who they have cause to stop, people who look suspicious or they see doing something that is suspicious. They're just stopping people randomly. And only 6% are actually guilty of something. And most of them are not even arrested. Most of them are written tickets for whatever. So obviously that doesn't really jive with the propaganda that we're told. So, that's how in 30 years we go from DWI checkpoints to now everybody getting stopped and frisked as they come in certain areas as they come to and from their house. They can't even go to the local store without being stopped and frisked. And there's a lot of there's other programs like Operation Clean Halls, where big building owners give the police permission to enter the buildings, and they're actually stopping and frisking them. If you go from your apartment to the laundry room and don't bring your ID, you're risking arrest.
It's Nazi Germany. If you don't have your papers, your card on you.
That's right.
Wow. So, okay, how have you been perceived since you've been out campaigning by what we would call your political adversaries and just the population in general? Like, how have you been perceived in your ideology since you've been awake and since you've been politically active?
I think that, look, our views are marginalized. libertarian views are marginalized in the media. Staten Island is a very conservative or neoconservative community. They view themselves as conservative, but I would argue they don't really understand what conservative really means. And I think a lot of the reaction that I usually get is that that's a great ideal, and I agree with you in principle, but it's not realistic. Terrorism, crime, all these things, it's fear. It's all fear-based. So they're afraid of something, and they're willing to trade that right. They're willing to trade the Fourth Amendment because I live in a white neighborhood. I don't have to worry about getting stopped and frisked. So, you know what? And if a cop did stop and frisk me, I'm not guilty of anything, so it's okay. So they're willing to trade that because it doesn't affect them. And that's one of the things that I say all the time. I said with the Homeland Security initiatives saying that now Iraq and Afghan veterans that are returning home are suffering from PTSD, and now they're going to be potential terrorists because they're angry about the war, et cetera, et cetera. You watch. Stop and frisk is coming to white neighborhoods. And if at some point when they implement total authoritarianism, it will come to even the wealthy white neighborhoods. And that's when, but it'll be too late.
All right, so recently, for those you don't know, last week Rand Paul came out and endorsed Mitt Romney. Now, libertarians have been known to follow their own path, and they basically don't connect with the two major parties. That's what makes them different. That's what makes them unique. And a lot of people, Rand Paul's gotten a lot of backlash. So what's your take on the whole Rand Paul scenario? What's going on with that?
Okay, I think that even though Carol Paul, Dr. Paul's wife, has made statements that Rand Paul did not consult his father on this decision, I don't believe that. Not for a second. I don't think that he would make that move without it being a coordinated campaign tactic.
And didn't earlier that day Ron Paul say he conceded his delegates and he wasn't, basically that was it, so that was on the same day, right?
I'm not sure. I didn't read the statement, so I'm not 100% sure on that, so I don't want to speak to that. But what I see the campaign doing overall, when he announced about a month ago that he was going to stop actively campaigning, what that said to me, but he was still going to go for the delegates. So what that says to me is he's using the delegates as a political bargaining chip. So whatever it is they're bargaining for, you know, maybe a cabinet position, I don't think that's going to happen. There's some backroom deal going on that involves Rand and potentially a White House run in 2016. So whatever the deal is, I'm not interested. The libertarians are supposed to be, I mean, the Libertarian Party, and I know that they're technically not part of the Libertarian Party, but the slogan is the party of principle. And libertarians are supposed to be principled. And to me, when you give up those principles, there's not just, you know, is it the wrong thing to do? I think it's immoral, but I think there's karmic implications, right? So whether you believe in God or karma, whatever it is, you reap what you sow. I mean, you know that's a law of the universe. And I think when Rand Paul sacrifices, and then people make justifications for it, when Rand Paul sacrifices a principle for some deal, some perceived good, you know, let's say he was trading that endorsement for a repeal of NDAA. I know that's a fantasy land scenario, but let's say that's what it was. Okay. But karmically speaking, the message of liberty and liberty itself is going to suffer from that. What has the Ron Paul, the Paul bots, the Levolution, what's the one thing that we say about the Pauls, about libertarians, that they're principled, he doesn't sacrifice his principles? Well, now we look like fools, because here he is going back and giving up, and it makes us look like, well, look, Ron Paul's just another politician.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to hurt the Levolution in the long run, and maybe he'll make some short-term political gains, maybe, or maybe not.
So what would you see happening? Let's say something does happen, either Ron or Rand get a cabinet position or even a vice president position. How would that affect things for people like you and I? How would that affect Americans in general? Do you think we'd be able to kind of get our agenda in, or do you think the system would change us more than we would change the system?
No, I mean, I think that although I disagree with Rand Paul's strategy, and even Ron Paul's strategy to some degree. I think that it would benefit us. Is it worth sacrificing our principles over? No. They're going to be short-term gains. It's going to be we're constantly fighting for ground. In the political realm, you're constantly trying to get that ball a couple of yards further. Use a football analogy. But it's a never-ending battle. It's not like we're going to repeal NDA and never worry about it again. They'll try and pass it again through another bill. So, to me, it's not worth hurting morale. Look what it's done to the revolution. There's so much infighting over the ones that say, yes, we have to reclaim the Republican Party. And that's fine. I mean, I think the delegate strategy was a great strategy. It's going to have it's going to affect the Republican Party for the next 10 to 20 years because young people are joining the Republican Party because of Ron Paul, going in, getting involved, becoming delegates, getting into the leadership on a grassroots level. That's going to make real change. And I am very proud and very happy that Ron Paul chose to do that, chose that strategy. At the same time, we cannot sacrifice our principles. We can do both.
All right. Now, tell me your thoughts about something like a resource-based economy, something like presenting the ideas of Jack Fresco. Are you familiar with that?
Actually, I'm really not 100%.
Well, he has this idea that, and it seems kind of like a socialist idea. He says that we have enough wealth and materials and food to basically feed and clothe everybody, but basically that wealth, both materially and in money, is consolidated within a small amount of people. And if we were to restructure things, basically we could live in a world that produced so much food that we could eliminate theft because we'd have so much food you could go into a store and just take things for free. So if you eliminate want for something, you eliminate the crime. If everyone can afford a car, no one's going to go out and steal a car. What are your ideas on something like that? A completely different structure outside of a republic and capitalism.
It sounds to me like a system like that would require violence. At least at least to set it up, it requires violence. And as a libertarian, most libertarians subscribe to the non-aggression principle, which means you don't initiate violence against another unless it is in self-defense, unless you're defending yourself or your property. To be able to implement that type of society, there would need to be a violent takeover and then a redistribution. So who do we trust to do that? I don't trust anybody to do that. So I think it's fallacious thinking. I don't think it's possible.
All right, so what's coming up on the horizon? Where do we see ourselves, the United States, the rest of the globe in the next 5-10 years with this creeping police state and tyranny versus the burgeoning patriot movement?
Well, I hate to be a negative Nancy, but I see, economically speaking, and I think economics drives everything. It's the seat of power. So the police state is a response to, or a preparation for the economic trouble that's coming. They're setting up the police state so that when we become Greece and people are rioting the streets, they're ready for it and they can deal with it and minimize the damage to the superclass, right, or to protect the superclass. That's really what it's about. It's not about protecting us. It's about protecting the superclass and protecting their assets and their wealth and their power. So what I see happening is, Wall Street is not an American concept. It's not they're not loyal to America. I mean, there may be people within the Wall Street system that are loyal to America, but the system itself, it has no country. It's a financial system. It has a purpose. That purpose is to profit. So it will suck the U.S. economy dry until it's a dried up carcass and there's nothing left, and then it will go somewhere else. And we see that already happening with China. China is more of a capitalist system than we are at this point. So they're moving towards China and India and away from the United States. So I don't know how fast that will happen. If it will happen in the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, it's hard to say. It seems like it'll happen sooner rather than later. But I think we will get to a pretty authoritarian Judge Dredd kind of scenario in the United States within the next 10 to 20 years. I think that we will see more terror attacks, whether they're false flag or real. And as a response to that, I mean, you saw from 9/11, you said before it didn't happen overnight, but it kind of did happen overnight in a sense that 9/11 made people very willing to accept a lot of tyranny very quickly. And if we have another few 9/11s, I think we can get to authoritarianism very quickly. So yeah, within the next 10, look, the NYPD right now, as we sit here, is flying drones over the city, is implementing iris scanning on the streets, stopping and frisking anybody they want for any reason, no warrants, not even any suspicion at this point anymore. And it's all coming from federal directives. Homeland Security distributes these reports, propagandizes the police, and says, look, this is who your enemy is, this is who you have to look out for, we're spending millions of dollars on this research, and we're tracking these trends, and this is what's happening, this is what you have to look for. And they're being lied to. They're being lied to. And so the police think that they're doing God's work, and they're implementing this crackdown police state to keep everybody safe.
All right, so you yourself, you were basically, like you said, a neocon a few years ago, and then you had your awakening. I mean, you spoke to Dylan Radigan, you've been on Fox and Friends, you spoke with Judge Napolitano, Alex Jones. So what are some, and you're just a regular guy, so what are some solutions, what are some things that everyday people can do to stop this, prevent this from happening, take back our country, take back our Bill of Rights that made our country great, and restore a republic? What can we do?
Well, do something. Get involved in some way, right? I mean, we all are part of the same body of humanity without sounding too, pie in the sky, right? We're all brothers and sisters, and we all have to do our part. So whatever that means for you. So for me and We Are Change and some of the other activists that's going out and confronting politicians and trying to create an alternative media and kind of blow the whistle and get this information out that the corporate media won't cover. For other people, it's running for office. Look, I respect Rand Paul. He ran for office, he got into the Senate, he is in a place where he can affect real change now within the government. But the government is not the source of freedom. We ourselves need to take responsibility and live free in spite of the people that are trying to take our freedom away. Because that's where our freedom comes from ourselves. It's within us. God or nature has put that desire for liberty in our hearts, and it is a concept or a desire that is, it transcends time. It's been the thing, the spark in humans that has always made us struggle to be free. So struggle to be free. Don't just live in the system, watch TV, and exist. Struggle for your freedom. So one of the basic ways that you can do this is just have relationships with your neighbors. When things go really bad and society starts to break down, you're going to need to know your neighbors. You guys are going to need to band together when there are, roving bands of looters coming around to steal people's food because they're starving. You're going to need to know your neighbors. So meet your neighbors, get to know them, become friends with them, develop a real relationship with them, and then share the message of liberty with them and spread it that way. I mean, that's one of the simplest things that we all should be doing no matter what our chosen mode of activism is. Start a blog, start a YouTube channel, start a show like this one. If media is not your thing, if graphic design is your thing, make graphics that can be spread online, cool illustrations of the liberty message. Whatever your talent is, apply it to liberty and just take action. And just don't wait and say, oh, well, I'll do it when I get a better laptop that I can edit video on or whatever it is, because that day will never come. You'll just procrastinate. So just take action. Look, I still duplicate DVDs and hand them out. I think an untapped source for liberty right now is high schools. High school students need to be copying these DVDs and passing them out at school and waking kids up in high school before they go out into the world and are propagandized and indoctrinated. They need to know the truth now. I think that's a great place for your younger viewers to start. It's a little creepy for me. I'm 35 years old to go to a high school and hand out DVDs. But if they could be doing it in school and talking to their friends and saying, hey, listen, guys, Obama's owned by Goldman Sachs. What? well, what are you saying? And then that open, But it all comes down to relationship. If you have relationships within your community, people are going to listen to you and be open to the message of liberty. If you're standing on a street corner with a bullhorn, you may wake up a few people, but you're not going to have as good of a reaction.
All right, Danny, thank you very much for coming down and talking with us.
No, thank you.
What's the best website for people to reach you at and get your information?
My blog is truthsquad.tv, so you can read about all the police state stuff with New York City, the NYPD. Just go to the security tab and you can read all those stories. Or DannyPanzella.com. You can get to all my social networking if you want to check me out there.
All right, and thank you guys for viewing. I'm Will Turbitt again. Follow us on Twitter @DemandTheTruth and check us out on the web, demandthetruth.net. Thank you.